A great day for America today. And we're going to talk about what happened today in California. Very, very big deal. Great news for RFK Jr., for RFK Jr. supporters, and for anybody who wants to see RFK Jr. on the ballot. This is amazing. So I'm going to just play this little clip because, actually, you know what? We'll do a little reading here first before I do that. We're going to read this and then I will clip. It's really, really interesting. All right. Today, April 29th, 2024. This is the press release from Kennedy24.com in Los Angeles, California. And guess what happened today? Kennedy campaign announced today the Kennedy Shanahan ticket is officially on the ballot in California, the largest of the Electoral College giants. Again, the largest of the Electoral College giants. It's a big, big deal here. So I adjust my microphone. This is a really, really big deal. Just make sure I come through okay. Let's see. Microphone seems to be on. It's on. Okay, sorry. Just wanted to check the mic just to make sure. Sometimes you never know. So let me just continue to read on a little bit here. The American Independent Party of California officially nominated independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and vice presidential candidate Nicole Shanahan this weekend and filed the paperwork with the California Secretary of State today. So here we have, again, the American Independent Party of California. This is big news. This is a big, big deal. This is another one of those instances where we are going to see Kennedy creating these new parties in order to get on the ballots quickly. This is just to get him on the ballot. That's all this is to have his name next to Joe Biden and President Trump. We're going to watch this video here. The Kennedy campaign has launched a robust ballot access plan to ensure the Kennedy-Shanahan ticket is on the ballot in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. The Kennedy-Shanahan ticket is officially on the ballot in Utah and Michigan. The campaign has collected enough signatures for ballot access in 7 additional states: New Hampshire, Nevada, Hawaii, North Carolina, Idaho, Nebraska, and Iowa. This is great, great news. And personally, I couldn't be happier with this. Maybe I could be, but if there was a Kennedy and Trump ticket, maybe that would make me a little bit happier. But aside from that, this is great, great news here. So I'll try to adjust this microphone. So great day, time to celebrate. Always good to see what is happening with these two candidates as we head to November of 2024. November of 2024, this is going to be the real day of execution. We're going to see some very powerful things executed here. But what I'm going to do right now is I try to adjust my camera just a little bit here. Move this over. I'm going to play this very important clip from RFK Jr. This is again from their the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. YouTube channel. Make sure we get it in the best quality there.
Hey everybody, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here with some great news. As of today, Nicole and I are officially on the ballot in California, the largest of all the electoral college states. I want to tell you the story of how it happened. A journalist recently asked me whether I considered myself a populist, and she used that term as if it were a dirty word. I answered, yeah, I'm a populist, the same way that my father was a populist. And I explained to her that populism is often motivated by idealistic impulses and motivations to take government back from corrupt elites, but it can also be captured by demagogues for darker purposes. to spur division, hatred, polarization, and bigotry. I gave her the example of my father's 1968 campaign. In 1968, my father launched a populist movement that captured the imagination of all kinds of cross-section of the American public, of white Americans, working class, middle class Americans, cops, firefighters, union members, Black Americans, white Americans, people on the Indian reservation in the Mississippi Delta, farm workers in California, and poor people in Appalachia. 4 years after my father's death in 1972 during the presidential election, many of those white Americans who had strongly supported my father in 1968 turned their vote that year not to George McGovern, who was aligned with my father on almost every issue, but they supported instead George Wallace, a bigoted segregation supporter who was antithetical to everything my father believed in. And I told her that it struck me then, and it's occurred to me many times since, that every nation, like every individual, has a darker side and a lighter side, and that the easiest thing for a politician to do is to appeal to our bigotry and our hatred and anger and xenophobia and our fear and all of these darker, low vibration impulses. The more difficult thing is what my dad tried to do and what I'm trying to do during this election, which is to get people to step away from their narrow self-interest, to transcend the lower impulses of bigotry and anger and fear, and see themselves as part of a great adventure, and see themselves as heroes who are willing to take a risk and to look at all the people in their community and understand that we have to avoid the seduction of the idea that we can only advance ourselves by leaving our poor brothers and sisters behind. We have to go forward as a community, as a nation, as a family. Well, it turns out that when you speak from your heart the way that I did that way, that the ripples extend outward and reach corners that you never expected. In this case, those ripples reached the American Independence Party of California and inspired in their new leadership the idea that they might want to participate in my campaign. Ironically, the American Independence Party was George Wallace's old party, but it's had its own rebirth even before I came along. It's been reborn as a party that represents not bigotry and hatred, but rather compassion and unity and idealism and common sense. When they learned about my candidacy, they had just drafted a new charter for their reborn party, where they could use their ballot line for good, for helping independent candidates to unite America without being blocked by the two-party duopoly. After hearing my interview, they began researching me and our effort, and they found out that we already had thousands of volunteers working across the country in various states, including California, to get me on the ballot. They were so impressed by this outpouring of democratic energy and vigor that they approached my campaign and offered us their spot on the California ballot. I see this story as a symbol of America's homecoming to an authentic populism of unity, peace, and prosperity, an evolution beyond the divisive years of President Trump and a return to the Kennedy vision, a country where government serves the people, where the people serve one another, and where our nation serves its idealistic mission as an exemplary nation, an example of democracy around the globe. That's why it's with a great sense of personal optimism that I proudly accept the American Independent Party's offer of ballot access here in California. Most of all, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the tens of thousands of California volunteers who have worked for my campaign on the sidewalks, in the malls, at the ball games, in front of the grocery stores, to sign up California voters for the We the People Party to achieve the same end. It was the scale of your efforts and the depth of your commitment that inspired the AIB to come to me and offer me this easy way to get my name on the ballot for the President of the United States from California. You can all be proud that you've laid the foundation we're a mighty organization that will support independent candidates for years into the future. I hope you'll all join with me in celebrating this victory, and I hope that, like me, you're going to wake up in the morning excited to enter a new phase of the California campaign. God bless you all.
I'm excited. I hope everyone else is too. This is a big deal. This is great news. This is some of the best news we could possibly have here. And so this goes back to the whole party thing where Kennedy was, he talks about this party that was inspired by it and offered their nomination, something that the Libertarian Party could do, something that any of these other parties could do. And we are seeing some of them do this actually. So this is just another great way to make sure that Kennedy's name gets on the ballot in 2024. Some of the states that I worried about were California. The other one is definitely New York, which he's making some headway there. May have a few things to talk about for what he's doing in New York, along with Trump, who is in New York right now, obviously. But this is amazing news. This is best case scenario, I would say, for California. California needs more options. California is hurting. California is a broken state. It's a hurting state, but there are a lot of great people in California. My fear is there are a lot of great people who may not vote. But even so, there are a lot of great people who will show up to vote in November of 2024. And there are a lot of people's hopes, and there are a lot of things riding on what happens to California in 2024 with this. It's just such a monumental thing. New York is next. We got to get New York. Kennedy has got to get his name on the ballot in New York State. That is a big one. There's others. Florida is going to be another big one. And I did want to look this up actually while I'm talking about this. I want to see California electoral votes. How many votes do they have? Because I need to start calculating all of this and how this is going to add up. So let me see if I can find some of this. California has 54 electoral votes. It's a big deal. Let me see if I can share this just so we can kind of look at this. Britannica, of all places. It's pretty cool. Oh, very rare I ever go to Britannica, but that's what they're saying. By electoral votes here. Okay. So U.S. electoral votes by state. The United States has a total of 538 electoral votes. 270 votes are needed to elect the president and vice president. 54. So yeah, it's the biggest one, and he's right there. Texas has got to be next, and we know he's making a big move in Texas. So Texas will probably be not a for sure thing. Obviously, nothing is for sure. But Texas, he has a political party working in Texas. They're going to do the same thing. And if Kennedy continues this tactic, he's going to be on the ballot. And that will justify him to be a part of any presidential debate, hopefully. That's what I'm hoping. And it'll be very curious to see what happens with this. So Florida, 30. So, I mean, those are the three biggest ones there. California, Texas, there's California 54, Texas with 40, Florida with 30. We have New York with 28. If he can get on those four big ones, that is a big deal. So I'm very excited, very happy. Even though I'm a Trump supporter, I'm very happy to see this. Washington 12, it's not a bad number. Pennsylvania 19, Ohio 17, Indiana 11, Illinois 19, Michigan 15, Georgia 16, North Carolina 16, Virginia 13. I mean, on and on and on. There's just a lot of great number. Arizona 11, Utah 6, Colorado 10, What is the other 10? Minnesota is 10. Wisconsin 10. These are going to be Indiana 11. I think I already said that. Missouri. So these are going to be some Massachusetts 11. What's the 16? North Carolina. So you can look at these maps and really see Kennedy has a really good chance to get on the ballot, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be on the ballot in 2024. There we go. That's why it wasn't working. All right. Well, let's see. That was a big one. That's a big deal. I did want to play a little bit of this. I think that's all I had from his YouTube channel. Let me see. Yeah, YouTube channel's done. So moving on from that. Actually, in the interest of fairness, I do want to look at some maybe one clip related to President Trump. I think this is a good one. It's about 2 minutes, 12 seconds. I'm going to play this one. From Truth Social, Trump reposting this. Choose your fighter. Let's look at what this is.
A new CNN poll has Biden losing to Trump by 6 points. These are landslide numbers. When you factor in RFK Jr., Trump's almost beating Biden by double digits. And this is a CNN poll. The Bloomberg poll had Trump beating Biden in 6 out of the 7 battlegrounds. Look at that. And Trump's been in court for the last 2 weeks while Biden's been campaigning. The New York Times calls it a blueprint for a Trump Electoral College victory and a gift from the political gods. Quote, the Manhattan courtroom will be the setting for Mr. Trump to play the role of a familiar American archetype, the wronged man seeking justice from corrupt, powerful forces. The former president is good in this role, and that's no small thing. Maybe the gag orders and corrupt court calendar will win Trump the White House just like Biden's basement campaign did. It keeps the former president disciplined, structured, and away from his tongue-wagging, freewheeling rallies and forces Biden to actually campaign. It gives the media less of an opportunity to twist Trump's words and more of an opportunity for Biden to get tongue-twisted or tell us cannibals ate his uncle. And it puts Biden in a harsh spotlight and puts Trump on an interesting stage that voters have never seen before. An intriguing courtroom drama. Remember, Trump beat Hillary by running against a rigged system. And what better scene could a director set for Trump than in a courtroom, unfairly prosecuted by savage Democrats, rigging the election with trials because they know the sitting president can barely stand. Even though Biden told Howard Stern he'd debate Trump, Democrats don't want him to.
Biden's folks don't want him to debate. They don't want to give Trump that platform and risk exposing Biden like that on national TV.
Ducking a presidential debate while you put your opponent on trial is exactly why Biden spent Saturday night not poking fun at the press, but begging them to save democracy, when he really means save his presidency.
That was a very, very powerful, another powerful speech or monologue there by Jesse Waters, who broke it down so nicely. And Donald Trump retweeted that. Just got to make sure I like that. Or retruth that. Sorry. Retruth that. So I'm going to retruth that. I thought that was really, really good. He laid it all out right there. There's another one about 1.5 minutes. So I'm going to quickly play this next one here too. This is really good and right on point. Jesse Waters always right on point. And Jesse Waters has had RFK Jr. on. I'd love to see him get a chance to interview Trump, but everything he laid out there in that 2-minute monologue is complete. I completely agree with it all.
Joining us now, Byron York, who also has a kind heart, Washington Examiner chief political correspondent, Fox News contributor, and Matt Towery also has a good heart, political analyst and pollster. Byron, historically bad poll numbers on the economy, usually not a recipe for success in an election year, but they're doing their darndest to try to spin this and to, I guess, send out the signal flares that this could be an emergency situation?
You know, you can't spin inflation. That is the big problem. We have this unique election where both candidates have been president of the United States. People can compare the two actual time in office. And in the CNN poll, 55% of the people said that Donald Trump's presidency was a success. And 61% of the people said Joe Biden's presidency so far has been a failure. And the reason the biggest reason is inflation, because it has not gone away. It is cumulative. The inflation that we all suffered through in 2021, 22, 23 is still with us and getting bigger. And the most recent report, which we got about a month ago, is that it was higher than we think, which killed any hopes of the Fed cutting interest rates and people's hopes of buying a house. I mean, no wonder they are worried about the future.
There it is. All right, now I'm going to cut to another. Just looking at some of the things that are happening here. The campaign coverage. This is a big one. There's two big ones. RFK wants to debate former President Trump, the growing RFK Jr. coalition. This is obviously much more interesting to me. So I'm going to click on this. Let's see. We're going to read a little bit more. Oh, The Hill. Yeah, The Hill is pretty good. I'm curious if I really want to play this whole thing. I do. It's coming through.
Good morning and welcome to Rising.
I like Rob.
We have
He's cool.
what I think is a perfectly adequate show for you today, and we're excited to tell you all about it in just a minute. Hello, Brianna. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And you know what, Robbie? I'm doing especially well because I have been following the trend. I have been assessing patterns. I think largely that is my job. And the pattern that I've assessed is that when you make your perfectly adequate show joke, it means we're going to have a banger of a show.
Oh, I like that. You're reading the tea leaves.
That's right.
You're reading the psychic vibes that are out
100%.
there.
Let's get to it.
A poll that Fox released this week, and I'm leading President Trump and President Biden in terms of favorability.
He also had this to say.
So then why am I behind? The reason I'm behind is in the voting polls, the conventional voting polls, is because so many Americans are voting out of fear. And if
And that's so true. And a lot of people have been voting out of fear. So it's so nice to have that opportunity or that option where they don't have to vote out of fear. I don't know why they would be fearful of President Trump. I think he's the greatest president that we've had. But if you're fearful of voting for him and you're like, oh, I don't want to vote for him, I don't want to vote for Biden, you got a really good choice right here, RFK Jr.
I have yet to talk to anybody outside of my family who says we're voting for President Biden because he's energetic and because he's got the cognitive capacity to outsmart everybody in the world.
And probably the family that he's talking about is probably just the same ones that work for Biden and the same ones who have been very vocal about their stance against RFK Jr. on things like the vaccines, the lockdowns, the wars, and on other things. Probably even his uncle's death and his dad's death. I'll bet they disagree with him on those things. Well, guess what? RFK Jr. agrees with most of us on his dad's death and his uncle's death. So where does that put these other family members? Why would I take them seriously if they don't understand JFK truth, if they don't understand RFK truth, they don't understand those simple things? Why would I ever take them seriously? And why would I think that they are a real Kennedy? If these Kennedy family members can turn their back on President John F. Kennedy, and if they can turn their back on RFK Sr., why would I be surprised that they're going to turn their back on RFK Jr.? I'm not surprised, and I'm sure you're not either. Let's keep going.
And he's going to give us a new vision for America. They never say that, except some of my family members who do believe that.
All right, it's clear that RFK Jr. is getting under Donald Trump's skin. The GOP candidate attacked RFK Jr. on Friday, posting on Truth Social, quote, RFK Jr. is a Democrat plant, a radical left liberal who's been put in place in order to help crooked Joe Biden. He also added that a vote for RFK Jr. is a wasted vote. RFK Jr. responded to Trump's criticism yesterday, characterizing it as, quote, unhinged. He said, quote, when frightened men take to social media, they risk descending into vitriol, which makes them sound unhinged. President Trump's rant against me is a barely coherent barrage of wild and inaccurate claims that should best be resolved in the American tradition of presidential debate. Now, Trump's tenor follows a recent New York Times Siena College poll showing support for RFK Jr. comes at Trump's expense more so than it does at Biden's.
Robbie looks way too slow. Look at that. He's just waiting, biding his time. Let's hear what he's got.
All right, I gotta give credit where credit's due. RFK Jr.'s burn about the only people who think that Biden.
Remember, she is not a Biden supporter or anything, but total Democrat, pro-Palestinian, seems like at least. But for some reason, I don't mind her.
That was funny.
Excited about Joe Biden are my own family members. The Kennedy clan has very notably come out on several occasions now to say that they disavow their relative RFK Jr.'s campaign and that they support Joe Biden full-throatedly. What did you make of the rest
Being
of that?
able to kind of make fun of yourself is an underrated quality.
Yes.
In politicians are so sociopathic and so narcissistic and so ego-driven that I really actually appreciated that.
Yeah,
can you imagine Trump making fun of himself?
Well, no. I mean, Trump is huge.
You imagine making fun of everyone else on Earth, but
right. So I mean,
he thinks he's like the most talented Olympic swimmer on the planet, probably.
well, this is
and you know, Biden doesn't maybe even know what time it is anymore.
So this is part of what's so interesting is that for years now, the argument has been nobody knows how to really parry with Trump. Nobody knows how to go head to head with him and come out on top. Is that Jr. is the pugilist we've been looking for that can actually stand toe to toe with Donald Trump and not seem kind of weak and ineffectual.
Yeah, I think it would be to the American people's tremendous benefit to have a debate between all three of these figures. Like ostensibly, we're supposed to get a Trump-Biden debate. RFK Jr.'s poll numbers should have him on that stage as well if they hold. I think that would be tremendously beneficial, and I think it would be quite a contrast. I mean, you know, RFK Jr. is the spring chicken, the young man in the contest because of the advanced age of our other candidates, and I think it would be really great to be able to hear from all of them. You know, Trump. I do perceive that Team Trump is getting more worried about RFK Jr. drawing their voters away now than the Biden people. Obviously, the Biden people are concerned about that as well. And I think the truth is obviously that he is taking some voters from both sides and then also taking from voters who frankly would not vote for either of those two candidates. This is generally what the third party candidate does. People who are actually interested in looking outside the two-party paradigm might not have come home to either Biden or Trump. Sure, there will be some of them. But the panic over RFK Jr. on both sides is very interesting and very instructive, and I think shows you how the major party candidates feel that they are owed your vote and that they don't have to work especially hard to get it. They feel betrayed when you're not reflexively supporting the person with a D or an R next to the name, independent of whatever their platform is or whatever their vision is or whatever they're doing. They absolutely think it's owed to them, and they want to do things like maybe, you know, give extra scrutiny for all those ballot signatures he's collecting to actually appear in the states. Let's make sure we deploy the full resources of our legal teams against him, as Joe Biden's team is certainly doing.
Now, on the question of a debate, I want to keep reading from that RFK Jr. quote because I think he tees up a lot of issues that really demonstrate why it's so important for the American public to get the debate. Substantive issues that, frankly, Donald Trump has not been squarely pressed on because he largely does more friendly conservative press interviews, or liberal interviews where people are so kind of bad faith and overly focused on these democracy points, they don't ask him about the agenda items that his own base actually care about. So this is what RFK Jr. went on to say. He said, President Trump, who has proven himself the most adept debater in modern American political history, should not be panicked to meet me on that stage. He's like, hey, you're actually good at this. Don't be scared. He goes on to say, to preview my arguments, I will show how President Trump betrayed the hopes of his most sincere followers. He promised to end the Ukraine war and then colluded with Speaker Johnson and President Biden to fund it. He let Big Pharma and his corrupt bureaucrats run roughshod over him as president. He promised to cut the deficit and ran up the biggest debt in history. He promised to run the government like a business and then close down our businesses. He promised to drain the swamp and then filled his administration with swamp creatures. He promised to protect our rights and then torpedoed the Constitution. Instead of lobbing poisonous bombs from the safety of his bunker, let's hear President Trump defend his record to meet mano a mano, a respective congenial debate.
And I think this should once again put to bed this ridiculous idea that has been ridiculous and should have already been put to bed, that he's only in this race to somehow hurt Biden, that he's actually trying to help Trump get elected. Like you hear that kind of vibe expressed, I think, from a lot of mainstream Democratic pundits. No, he is also running against President Trump. He has substantive criticism.
Yes, and let's talk about some of these substantive criticisms.
Yeah.
So I see no lies detected on his point about the Ukraine war. I mean, I think it's useful to have RFK Jr. in this race, if only for this reason. I have seen people on the left, I've seen people like Michael Tracy beating the gong for over a week now about why aren't any conservative establishment media figures willing to critique Donald Trump from bear-hugging Mike Johnson as he betrays the MAGA base on this foreign aid funding. RFK Jr., perhaps because he's not within the Republican establishment, is willing to do it. He is absolutely right about Donald Trump running up the deficit with a tax cut that 80% of 80 cents on every dollar of which, or some figure very close to that, went to the top 1% of Americans. And this has been a Democratic talking point for years that is 100% true. And
I don't know. I don't know if I would agree with that. Only to say that, I mean, you have, like, the main thing is, were you better under Donald Trump? That's his main thing. Were you better under Donald Trump? Were you better today? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And remember, this is 4 years of Donald Trump and 2 years of COVID. Really? Well, maybe 1 year. Okay. Yeah, about 2 years there of the COVID stuff. And with everything else that they went after Donald Trump with, were we better under Trump or under Biden? That's going to be a big deal. That's going to play a big factor. Now, we could say, well, yeah, we were better under Trump, but it still wasn't that great. But at least it wasn't as bad as where we are with Biden. I think that would be a fair argument. I could buy that. I could believe that. Personally, I did very well under Trump. I did very well under COVID. And, I can't act like that didn't happen. I can't act like that isn't what the truth is. But for me, that is the truth. But for a lot of people, I think they just got caught up in 2020 and got caught up in the hatred of President Trump. Maybe didn't even know why. It's like these people who are out there protesting Israel and have no idea what they're even protesting for, and have no idea that the people that they are protesting, that they are supporting in this protest would kill them in an instant, would take them out first. They have no idea about that. Anyways, but I love hearing these two talk. I love their back and forth. It is so respectful. This is one of my favorite shows. I really enjoy watching them go back and forth.
And the response from conservatives have been just to give up caring about deficit spending. They just decided we're not going to be deficit hawks anymore because Donald Trump made it basically impossible for them to do. But is what the tastemakers in the Republican Party think about that the same as what the Republican base thinks about that?
I mean, the base
is RFK Jr. the only one who's willing to carry that banner consistently for the base.
The Republican base, unfortunately, is very accustomed, I think, to betrayal on talk of runaway government spending and deficits, and then it doesn't matter. Then the Republican administration comes in and spends even more than their predecessor, and it's that is not a new betrayal. But I absolutely agree with you, particularly on Ukraine spending, on FISA, on all of these things where Donald Trump could have, in theory, distinguished himself from, or even prevented, perhaps, the speaker from going down this direction, and absolutely did not. And the MAGA base, I agree with you, should be feeling, they were betrayed and should be feeling betrayed. And they do, in fact, have a...
What are we betrayed? Why would we feel betrayed from anything that Donald Trump did? He's not in office. He has no power over Congress. He can give his views and share his thoughts. And this may be another instance where he can sit next to somebody like Mike Johnson that he disagrees with. And then he can say, I mean, what is he going to say? Oh, no, we're not going to give funding for this. We're looking at everything that is happening and how close the Congress is. That is looking at what type of a Congress are we going to see when President Trump gets back in office? It's going to be a Democratic Congress. It looks like they may have both the House and the Senate at this point. You never know. So. I mean, Trump, they act like Trump has all of this power over Congress, over what the Republicans are doing. Half the Republicans don't even like him. They talk smack about him. They're not for him. They don't support him. They don't get out there. Now, on the lower levels and everything, the real Republicans, we see that they do support him. But the established ones that have been there for a long time, that are on their way out, they're not interested in doing some of these radical changes. And even some of the stuff that I see, I don't really agree with either. But I don't agree with giving money, the whole war and all that. I don't agree with any of those fundings, but they're going to do it. They're going to keep this war going. And that is a bad thing. And that's going to, that some could argue that may even help Trump get back into office. But what is Trump going to do? He can only voice his thoughts on it and say, okay, well, whatever you guys are going to do, then do it. But I think they act like Trump has way too much power over the Republican Party. I don't believe Trump has that much power over the Republican Party, especially considering everything that Trump is going through right now and everything that he is going to go through leading up to November of 2024.
Vessel to channel that sense of betrayal in the person of RFK Jr.
And then
So I think it's very smart for him to talk
See,
about
this betrayal, like, and when they think about the MAGA, they act like, oh, it's us or nothing. Like MAGA is some type of cult. It's make America great again. That's it. That's all it is. Get my hat here. MAGA just means to make America great again. That's it, right? It's not just about Donald Trump. It's not just, well, whatever Trump says, we're going to go with that. I know that Jesse Ventura has made some arguments that that's kind of what it seems like. It may seem like that, but I'm not just going to go with anything and everything that Trump says. The reason why I like Trump is because I agree with him on a lot of things, because maybe I'm as thick-headed and as stubborn as Trump is. And maybe that's why a lot of us can relate to him, because we do care about this country, because we do want the best for this country. And we're not just thinking about our team. And that's what the Democrats are good at, is their team. But Trump and this MAGA movement, the Make America Great Again movement, which is just about, we've been wanting that before Trump. We wanted to make America great again way before Trump even thought about running for political office. He was just the right person at the right time to get that job done. And he did it. He did it in 4 years, and he can do it again here. And I believe RFK Jr. can also do that too. All right, just a few more minutes of this. We're almost done.
The hitting Trump on his COVID policies, that's something that has really faded from the headlines of late. But remember, that is how RFK Jr. got a lot of kind of political capital over the course of the last few years is, again, being the bannerman for that issue. He said specifically, he blamed Trump. Again, this has been framed as a Democrat versus Republican thing, but he blamed Trump for promising to run the government like a business and then closing down our businesses. It's a subtle little COVID dig, but I don't know any other way to interpret that other
Trump
than
did not. This is one of the things that I really disagree with President or with RFK Jr. on. Is like he makes it seem like Trump shut everything down and kept everything shut down. Shut things down for 2-3 weeks. Trump was one of the first people who wanted to get the country back up and running. It was the states who really had the power over their businesses, not Trump. Who really have the power over their businesses. And by the way, with the PPP loans, Trump helped those businesses, those small businesses too. But it was a no-win situation with the COVID thing, regardless of what your views are on it. But Trump was definitely one of the first people who wanted to open up the country. And it was the states, especially the states that didn't like Trump, were the ones who really wanted to keep their own state closed. And you have to wonder why. In an election year, you would definitely wonder why. Who would that help? Who would that hurt? What states reopened really fast and voted for Trump? And what states didn't open and didn't vote for him? And shenanigans. And that's all I want to say about that. Good discussion here, though.
Who are Donald Trump responsible for some of the shutdown policies that have become controversial?
He is vulnerable on that with conservatives. I mean, that was the high watermark of Ron DeSantis's efforts when he was at a time when he was pulling somewhat within striking distance very early on before everybody else got in. And then all the legal matters facing Trump made the MAGA people really feel like they had to rally to Trump no matter what. Trump was vulnerable on that front, so you could peel people away for a candidate who was speaking to those issues, and there is a candidate speaking to those issues. It's very, very interesting. We will continue to follow that. I have a radar up next.
Great discussion by those two. I really enjoyed that. So let me see if I have anything else. I guess we can look at, before I end this here, look at the map. This is the map, the Kennedy map here. Remember, again, everything in purple. California now, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Hawaii. That is where you will see. It is a done deal. I believe it's a done deal. You will see Kennedy on that ballot in those states. 75,000 people in California made this happen. They made this happen. This is great. And so we are, even though they were using the We the People party, this was actually a different party. This was actually, let me go back and see if I can go back here, because this is not We the People party that made this happen, right? This is, what is it? The Independent American Party? Is that what it is? Yeah, the American Independent Party of California, which, I also think, I wonder if that's the same one in 2016 that had Trump on the ballot too. I'll have to go back and look at that. So, I want to end this kind of on a little high note here. And hopefully this is coming through, because this is a good little 1-minute clip from RFK Jr.'s Twitter.
There are so many books about my family. Most 14-year-old kids who lose a dad, because you're always kind of measuring yourself against your dad. Yeah. I'm not saying in a competition, but I'm saying in terms of role modeling behavior, what he do in this situation.
You remember when your father was called, when your uncle was killed, right?
Yes. The day my uncle was killed, I was picked up early from school that day. And as we were leaving, there were flags in Washington, D.C. were being lowered to half mast. When I got home, my father was walking in the yard with John McCone, head of the CIA. My father said, "Did your people do this?" My father made 3 calls that day. The first call he made, he called the desk officer at the CIA. The next call he made was to Harry Ruiz, one of the Cuban activists. His first suspicion, it was the Miami Cubans who were affiliated with the CIA and who were very, very hostile to my dad.
I'm watching a show on Netflix called The Octopus Murder. It's another really bad period of the CIA, starting in the 1980s under Reagan.
Like Operation Condor in Latin America.
Yeah. Is there a way to bring the CIA under control?
My uncle's plans for reorganizing the CIA.
That was good. That was really good. All right. Well, I believe I am going to end it maybe there. Oh, I do have. That's an older clip. No, I think that's a good place to really end it right there. All right, my friends. God bless you all. Thank you, and until next time. And there will be a next time very soon. I'm gonna get back to writing this book. I got a lot of things to write tonight. So God bless you all. Until next time. Remember, Jesus Christ loves you.